Okay, so the next type of line that we're going to talk about is where we vary the thickness and the value of the line. So it might be thicker, it might be thinner, it might be darker, it might be lighter, and that can be done oftentimes unintentionally. And I want to teach you how to pay attention to it so that you can make it intentional, and that might add some meaning to your artwork. So let's look at some examples, and I'll show you one where I've done it unintentionally, and then some others where I've purposefully used that thickness and the darkness of the line to convey different meaning or different subjects. Okay, so here we have some varied thicknesses of the apples that I've drawn. Here I've used the Tombow Homograph Mono 2B. And on this one, what I tried to do was actually make intentional changes to the thickness and the thinness. So in order to show where the light was coming from, I made it thinner and lighter lines on this side, imagining that your light source is coming from here and hitting that side of the apple. And then I made it thicker and darker lines over on this side so that that would convey that it's maybe on the shadow side. Additionally, with the cast shadow, I made it darker over here towards the light source because typically we're going to see a darker edge where the light source is coming from, and then the dark kind of blends into the dark over here and you get a lost edge. Now on this one, I also used the Tombow Homograph Mono 2B, and I just varied the line and the thickness, the pressure, the darkness, or the lightness. I did it completely randomly. So you can see that this one actually starts to look a little bit more like a bell pepper than it looks like an apple. And there's really no sense of the curve or the depth, where you get a little bit of a better sense of the form on this one. This one, it's just sort of like, I don't know why it's thicker or thinner in certain spots, and it's not very appealing. Let's look at a couple of other examples. So I've got this drawing of Ganesha, which is the Hindu god of, I believe he's the patron of the arts and the remover of obstacles. So hopefully this will be good luck for you drawers out there. In this drawing, I was actually creating it with a student of mine who I meet with weekly. So I think we worked on this maybe for like a month and a half, something like that. And each time I was drawing, I was maybe using a different pencil. It was a different week. So my pressure might have been slightly different. My motor skills changed from day to day and moment to moment. So some days I might have had a heavier hand, and other days I might have had lighter hands. So you can see that there's some really dark areas here and here and here and here and over here. And then there's some areas where the lines are much thinner and I pressed less hard. So this is an unintentional use of varied thickness or varied value. And while it was fine for just working on getting the form and trying this as an exercise because there's so many accessories to the statue that, you know, it was a lot of work to actually draw. However, I wouldn't want to use this then to go from to continue to shade in, or I would lighten all the lines so that they're uniform. Or if I was going to not shade it in, then I would just darken all of the lines and make them more uniform. So you want to bring some consciousness to what you're drawing and make that choice about your line very purposeful and intentional rather than just, hey, whatever happens, happens. So here's some uses where you could use varied thickness and weight of your line or value of your line to convey some meaning. So this was drawing with the Urban Skechers again. We met out at an antique mall and I was drawing probably some crazy old prom dress or something like that. And you can see that I weighted the line more thick and dark down here at the bottom and then up here towards the bust. And that was just to show a little bit of movement in the dress. And then other areas I made lighter lines, thinner lines, so that you wouldn't pay as much attention to those areas of the dress. So you can use it to guide your eye, the viewer's eye, to a focal point. You can use that kind of varied thickness to create movement. to create depth. So you want to start to play around with where are you thickening your line and where are you making it thinner, so that you can kind of try to play with the meaning. Here's another example, and this was also a practice drawing that I was doing with a student. We were working on how to draw hair, and in order to draw hair, you're going to have to show the volume of the hair, which can be more difficult to do. And you do that by making a lighter pressure in certain areas and thinner lines, and then a darker pressure in other areas and thicker lines. So you can see here I made darker lines, here I made darker lines, and in the middle I made lighter lines. And the same is going on over here. Darker, thicker, lighter, thinner. And so that actually helps me to sculpt the form with my line. Another example would be maybe showing texture, which you kind of saw in the dress. But these were some exercises that I was doing with another student, so how to draw an eye. And to do your eyelashes, I usually use a relatively dark pencil, and this one isn't very sharp, so I think I'm going to switch to the 5B. And I like to do a harder pressure at the beginning and a lighter pressure at the end. So that textural change actually really shows quite a bit in terms of the form. Now this isn't finished, you can see that one's finished, but the same is going to be true with your eyebrow hairs. You're going to want to do a thicker pressure in some parts, a thicker line, a darker line, and then a thinner line in other parts. So those are a bunch of different examples of how changing the weight of your line, so making it varied in thickness and darkness or value, can actually aid your work and help you communicate your ideas better in a drawing, or they can sometimes detract from your work. So I want you guys to play around with that and let me know how it goes. And remember, you'll make mistakes, so don't worry if you draw something and you think, oh, that's horrible looking. Remember back to my apple and know that even when you're playing around 20 years into all this drawing, that you're still gonna make stuff that you don't like. So give yourself that freedom to roam, change the thickness, change the pressure, change the value, and see what you come up with. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, LZM Studio, where I frequently release quick tips and all kinds of different ideas about drawing. Also check out my Facebook and my Instagram page. I like to show photographs of my artwork, of my students' artwork, and share funny stories from my students on those pages. And then check out my website, lzmstudio.com, where you're going to find more inspiration and full-length, detailed tutorials.